Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
The events in the Middle East have caused us to think and rethink, Dr. Shabir. And one of the things that is worth thinking about is how did the early Muslims respond to persecution, to being oppressed, to being under siege, particularly in the time of the Prophet Muhammad? So I wanted to pose that question to you, Dr. Shabir.
Yeah, two events come to mind when we think of siege. Two events in the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him. One is more a kind of a boycotting when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the people of his clan were under boycott. Nobody would deal with them, marry with them, or sell goods to them, or so on. And so they recused themselves to what is referred to as the Shab of Abu Talib. Abu Talib being the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So they all went to live in a valley where they could support each other and count their goods and ration out what they had to eat and so on. The other incident is what is referred to as the Battle of the Trench, or Khandak in Arabic, which did not turn out to be much of a battle, but the Muslims were under siege by a large allied enemy contingent.
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Shabir, tell me a little bit more about each of these incidents. Let's talk about the persecution first, the boycott. Tell me a little bit about how that played out and how they made the decision to go into the valley and how they supported themselves and what happened in that circumstance.
Yeah, so the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, began to receive revelations from God when he was about 40 years old. This was about the year 610 of the Common Era. And about 7 years into the mission, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was making public declarations. He was preaching the Quran, which was being revealed into his mind from God. This was not very welcome among the Quraysh, the people of his tribe. They persecuted him and his followers, and they put pressure on his uncle to let them have a free hand at killing the Prophet. What this means is that the tribes protected their own. Mm-hmm. So if anyone was to kill a member of the Prophet's tribe, before we even think about the Prophet, peace be upon him himself, just thinking about the tribe's member, then it would be the obligation of that tribe to seek revenge. So, sometimes blood feuds can go on and on. So they wanted the uncle of the Prophet, peace be upon him, to basically give up the Prophet so that he could be free game. They could kill him, and then there wouldn't be much repercussions. But Abu Talib, though did not embrace Islam, nonetheless supported his nephew, and he would not give them up. He was a man of principles. As a result, they all decided to boycott Abu Talib and his clan altogether. So what was Abu Talib to do? He gathered his people, and they went to stay in this glen where they could have some sustenance. But it was a very difficult time for them. Mm-hmm. According to what we know from the biographies of the Prophet, peace be upon him, they stayed there 3 years. And eventually they had nothing to eat but the herbage that they could find. And some of them said that, we ate that until, our excrement became like the goat's droppings. So anyway, this is how they described it. But
yes, and we know that the Prophet's wife died in that time as well, right?
Yeah. So the siege lasted up until about the 10th year of the Prophet's mission, so from the 7th to the 10th, about 3 years. And it was just after the siege was lifted that the Prophet's wife passed away, and his uncle Abu Talib also passed away. Okay. Now, it's interesting how the siege got lifted. There were many who would have second thoughts, because as things drag on, it's just like the Gaza crisis right now. Initially, people are saying, okay, justice has to be met. People have been attacked. Let's go and root out those who attacked us and so on. But over time, with the rising numbers of casualties, people start to rethink and wonder about the legitimacy and the justice and fairness of this all. So in a similar way, the Meccan people started to rethink, like, okay, so we ostracized these people, and here they are in that glen. So some of them tried to smuggle food in, and in one way or another, to help the Muslims who were in this. And it's not only Muslims, in fact, because Abu Talib himself was not a Muslim, but was the whole tribe that were being ostracized because of the preaching of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It's almost like the Gazans now, who have nothing to do with world politics, but innocent civilians. They're just suffering from the political maneuvers and the military maneuvers. So the people there, the Meccans who were opposed to the Prophet and his people, were themselves having second thoughts and trying to provide some food here and there. But at the political level, some of the chieftains started to talk to each other as well, and revisit the whole scenario. Like, how did we get here? Who really made this decision? Let's go back and look at the document that they had all signed together. So it so happens that when they had all signed a treaty together, a kind of a memorandum of understanding, much more than a treaty, that they would all be party to this boycott. And they had written the treaty starting with the name of God, Bismika Allahumma. And they had lodged the document of that treaty in the Kaaba. So the story goes, as mentioned in the books of Sirah, of the biographies of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Now, when they went to look back at that memorandum of understanding, they found that it had all been eaten up by ants or insects, leaving only the phrase, Bismika Allahumma, in your name, O God. And that, in a way, dissolved the paperwork and the record of the memorandum, the written record. And in a way, that helped to shift the decision to place the Muslims under boycott, and eventually the boycott was lifted.
Mm-hmm. So what lessons, Dr. Shabir, do you draw from this example here?
Well, we come away from it seeing that people can survive by the grace of God. And Muslims would say it's by the grace of God that document was all eaten up by the little creatures of God, except for the opening formula in the name of God. And we see that help comes eventually. The Muslims might be under trial and difficulty, and the Quran talks about this, that people before us have gone through a lot of difficulties. Masatumul ba'sa wa darra wa zulzulu. Misfortune and difficulties afflicted them, and they were even shaken. حَتَّى يَقُولَ الرَّسُولُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَهُ مَتَى نَصْرُ اللَّهِ, until the messenger and those who believed with him said, مَتَى نَصْرُ اللَّهِ, when will the help of God come? أَلَا إِنَّ نَصْرَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ, but God says, isn't it true that the help of God is near? So we should never despair of the mercy of God and of His help. His help will come, even after we are tried and tested to the point that we are shaken, and even our faith may be tested severely. But we should be assured that God's help will come, as it came to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, at this incident of the boycott, and in the incident of the Allied forces gathering against the Muslims there in the lifetime of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And all of this we find lessons that we can apply in our current times.
Dr. Shabir, tell me about the Battle of Khandak.
Yeah, so the Battle of Khandak is so-called a battle, but not much of a battle took place. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, dug a ditch, he and his followers did, around one of the pathways that would lead to the city, where the city was susceptible to being attacked. Now, a large Allied force had gathered to finally decimate the Muslims and root out the newly formed Muslim community, so that the message of Islam, which they did not like, would be quelled. So the enemies were staved off, but it meant also that the Muslims were locked in. And during this siege, which lasted a couple of weeks, the Muslims, again, did not have the chance to trade with the outside world. Goods could not come in or go out. And they had to survive on whatever little rations they had. So it was a difficult time for the Muslims. But eventually, as Muslims understood it, God sent a sandstorm. The sand got into the eyes of the enemies, and their tents were blown away, and then they could not withstand the difficulties of that environment, and the enemy allied forces dissipated, and the Muslims remained safe. So here too we see the resilience of the Muslims in defending themselves and their frontiers against the enemies attacking them. We see the large contingent of allied forces gathering against them, so that the chapter of the Quran that speaks about this incident is referred to as Surat Al-Ahzab, the chapter of the allies, because of the allied forces that had gathered to wipe out the Muslims once and for all.
All right. Thank you for that, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum.
We have some exciting news to share with you.
As you know, Let the Quran Speak has been on TV screens and social media for 22 years.
We've been reaching people all around the world, spreading positivity and good, and helping people experience the beauty of Islam and the accomplishments of Muslims.
We've been shooting in this very space for the past 2 decades.
And now, with the help of Allah, we're about to get the keys to Muslim Media Hub.
If you like what we're doing, you're going to love Muslim Media Hub even more.
Because it's the next step up.
Think new TV shows, podcasts, social media content, and film.
We'll have new talent, more youth, and a lot more space and resources to do what we love. Spread the message of Allah.
Our Muslim Media Hub costs $2.4 million.
And for that, we need to raise $300,000. Please give whatever you can. Every dollar counts.
It's our collective responsibility to share the message of Islam with our fellow human beings. Please help establish Muslim Media Hub so we can do this.
It's a sadaqah jariyah, something that will continue to be of benefit to the Muslim community long after we are gone.
Thank you, and may Allah bless you and your loved ones today and always.
Assalamu alaikum.